Welcome to the State Parliament of Rhineland-Palatinate. The newly elected members of Parliament of the 18th legislative period are meeting today for a joint session in the plenary hall of the Deutsch House. This film shows you how a new state parliament in Mainz comes into being. We also explain why a state parliament is important, which functions it has, and what all this has to do with you. Every 5 years, the citizens of Rhineland-Palatinate elect their parliamentary representatives. The election day on the 14th of March 2021 was preceded by a unique election campaign due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The candidates were unable to go door to door as usual. The campaign was predominantly held online. Also unique to this election was the high proportion of postal voters. At 6 p.m. on the Sunday of the election, first forecasts for the election outcome were announced. After all the votes had been counted, it became clear that for the first time, 6 parties would enter the State Parliament of Rhineland-Palatinate. On the 18th of May, 2 months later, the 101 elected members of Parliament convened for their first so-called constituent meeting in the Rheingoldhalle in Mainz, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, with distancing measures in place and wearing masks.
It is parliamentary custom for the oldest member to preside over the first session until the President of Parliament is elected.
Thus, the members of Parliament first elected a new President of Parliament, Hendrik Heering, and his 2 Vice Presidents, Astrid Schmidt and Matthias Lamert.
In this House, I want us to be role models for a fair, respectful debate, with the goal of finding the best concepts and solutions for the people of our state. I want to help make sure that we are aware, indeed enthusiastic, about how valuable our parliamentary democracy is. Thank you for your attention.
In this first session, the members of Parliament also elected a new Minister-President for Rhineland-Palatinate by secret ballot, Malu Dreyer of the SPD.
I must ask the question, Representative Dreyer, do you accept the election?
Mr. President, I accept the election and I thank you very, very much for the confidence. Thank you.
After her election as Minister-President, Malu Dreyer appointed her cabinet, which, like her, was sworn in by the President of Parliament. And so begins the real work of the State Parliament in its 18th legislative period. Germany is a federal country consisting of 16 states. Each state has its own parliament. The Bundestag and the state parliaments each have their own tasks, which they perform on their own responsibility. The State Parliament of Rhineland-Palatinate represents the citizens of the state of Rhineland-Palatinate. The State Parliament's duties, functions and composition are governed by the Constitution for Rhineland-Palatinate. The State Parliament represents the people. It elects the Minister-President, confirms the state government, passes laws and the state budget, controls the government and publicly deals with all important issues affecting our state. The State Parliament of Rhineland-Palatinate is composed of 101 elected members of Parliament, who currently belong to 6 parliamentary groups. In the plenary hall of the State Parliament, all members have a fixed seat. The President of Parliament or the Vice President and 2 members of Parliament, who are responsible for taking the minutes, make up the chairing committee. The members of the state government, namely the Minister-President and her ministers, attend the plenary sessions from the government bench. In addition, the academic service, the director at the State Parliament and session documentalists are present in the plenary hall. The members of Parliament join together to form parliamentary groups. These correspond to party affiliation, meaning there are currently 6 parliamentary groups in the State Parliament. They coordinate the parliamentary activities of their members, follow a common stance on political issues, and inform the public, so you, about their work. An important task of all parliamentary groups is also to control and monitor the work of the state government. In the current state parliament, no parliamentary group has an absolute majority, meaning more than 50% of the seats, and therefore cannot form a government on its own. For this reason, the parliamentary groups of the SPD, Bündnis 90 Die Grünen and FDP have joined forces to form a governing coalition. With its majority, this coalition supports the work of the state government. All parliamentary groups that do not support the government belong to the parliamentary opposition. The opposition often disagrees with the coalition and the government. It therefore frequently makes counter-proposals and introduces its own bills and motions to Parliament. The members of the State Parliament of Rhineland-Palatinate meet for plenary sessions on 2 to 3 days a month. The President of Parliament, Hendrik Heering, neutrally chairs these plenary sessions. The State Parliament is the heart of democracy. In plenary sessions, the members debate about the future of the state in a public and controversial manner, vote on laws and other important decisions, and ensure the transparency and diversity of opinion. The State Parliament of Rhineland-Palatinate has formed 17 expert committees. As a rule, they consist of 12 members appointed by the individual parliamentary groups. The same majority ratios apply here as in the entire State Parliament. The committees deal in detail with different subject areas, such as education, science, interior, climate, environment, economy and transport, agriculture, or budget and finance. Intensive preparatory work in the committees forms the core of parliamentary work. Experts in the relevant specialist areas are consulted as well. The committee meetings are also held publicly. Some of them can be followed via live stream on the internet. Member of Parliament Marion Schneid is chair of the Committee for Science. She will tell you what it is like to chair a committee in Parliament.
The work of a committee chair is, of course, to prepare the committee. That is, to agree on the agenda, to lead through the meeting, to give each group its right to speak, and ultimately to allow discussions, but also to make sure that things do not get out of hand, that people treat each other with respect. Of course, it is important, good and absolutely right that you can also chair a committee as a member of the opposition and that you speak and act on an equal footing with other colleagues. I believe this is an important sign of democracy. It is also right that regardless of the political goals each group has, there is a good cooperation. The biggest challenge for me in my work is actually to get the decisions that are made at the political level across to the people, or to communicate why we make which decisions. And of course, decisions always have disadvantages for various citizens. But even when this is the case, you have to communicate it. It is often difficult to actually explain our work to the people in that way. The detailed work actually takes place in the specialist committees. We discuss motions. We also discuss bills that are referred back from the plenum to the committee. We work on them and try to reformulate them accordingly. They go back to the plenary as recommendations. So expert committees actually do the important content work in order to ultimately be able to hold their own in the plenary debate.
In addition to their work in the committees, the The members of parliament naturally have many other tasks. Lana Horstmann represents the constituency of Neuwied and takes you along to see her work on the ground.
As a Member of Parliament, I represent the interests and concerns of the people in my constituency, take care of them and, if necessary, introduce topics in Mainz. In addition, I participate in the policy-making and decisions-taking processes here, and thus help set the course for the future of our state. As a comparatively young Member of Parliament, I naturally have a different perspective on issues. Nevertheless, it is important to have a good mix of experienced and young representatives in Parliament. The aim of my work in my constituency is to be in constant contact with the people and to find out which issues and concerns they have, which of course have to be implemented politically afterwards, and simply to be present and to be with the people. My typical working week looks like this. On Mondays and Fridays I'm out and about in my constituency, and on Wednesdays I'm always here in Mainz for the parliamentary group meeting. On Tuesdays and Thursdays we hold committee meetings. On plenary days the week is a bit more packed and we have more attendance here in Mainz.
The President of Parliament has a special role in the State Parliament. Hendrik Heering explains why this is not only the case on plenary days.
On the 18th of May, I was re-elected as President of Parliament. It naturally fills me with joy to receive the confidence of the State Parliament once again. As President of Parliament, it is my task to preside over the sessions of the State Parliament and to ensure that resolutions are passed in accordance with the Constitution. However, it is also my job to represent the State Parliament to the outside world and to manage the administration. The decisions made here in the State Parliament are at the end of a long process. They are prepared intensively through committee work and often preceded by an intensive dialogue process between the parliamentary groups and society. What is decided here in the State Parliament, therefore, has been intensively prepared and intensively discussed in advance. This is what makes parliamentary democracy so valuable.
Following extensive renovation work, the State Parliament can once again meet at its traditional seat, the Deutsch House in Mainz, since this legislative period.
The Deutsch House is a very historic building. No building in Germany has such a long-standing democratic tradition as the Deutsch House. In the 18th century, the Republic of Mainz, the first attempt at democracy in Germany, was proclaimed from its balcony.
The original flag of the Hambach Festival in 1832 has also returned to its place in the plenary hall of the State Parliament. It is one of the oldest flags in the colours black, red, gold, representing freedom, unity and democracy in Germany. With the renovated Deutsch House, an attractive, modern and contemporary centre of democracy has been created. It combines history, present and future and is open to the citizens.
The State Parliament contributes to strengthening democracy and inspiring enthusiasm for it by giving all citizens the opportunity to come directly to the State Parliament, to get in direct contact with politicians and to understand how democracy works. This is an important part of getting people excited about democracy. We are one of the very few generations fortunate enough to live in an open, free and democratic society. Only very few before us had this privilege. I would like citizens to realize how valuable an open and free society is, how valuable a functioning democracy is, and to realize that everyone has to contribute, that we should treat each other with respect in order to live in an open and free society. Those are the fundaments for a functioning democracy. Everyone should contribute in their personal sphere of influence.
Would you like to get your own impression of how your State Parliament works, or talk with the members of the State Parliament about political topics that are important to you? Come visit the State Parliament in Mainz. We look forward to seeing you.